So next up, we have Randy Graham, the Division Chief for the Science, Technology, and Integration branch here in Central Region, and he's going to be speaking about the Probabilistic Precipitation Portal for the upcoming winter season.
Thanks, Allie. Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here today. This is a team effort. As I said, I'm the Chief of the Science and Technology Integration Division here at Central Region Headquarters. Derek Dayrush, who is acting in Rock MIC right now, and also a program leader here at Central Region Headquarters for the Severe Winter and Public Programs, has played a big role in putting this content together, as is Stephanie Sappel, who's an ERS Met, who you all hear on the briefings in the morning. She's also one of the co-winner program leads here at Central Region. And Mike Fowle, the Sioux in Des Moines, who is one of the co-leads for the Probabilistic Messaging group, along with Kelly Sayre, the WCM up in Aberdeen. We've been working this this transition for a while. So I want to talk a little bit, Allison touched on it for a bit there, the Probabilistic Precipitation Portal in PWPF for winter 24-25 and what that means for you all out in the field. I'm not going to do a demo of the page that Allison showed some of the capabilities, but I'm going to talk more about the transition and how it's going to happen over the next month and a half or so. So just as a little background, the PWPF effort began in the Eastern region up in New England back in 2015. And offices were creating the graphics locally using GFE tools, such as the one that we run here in Central Region PM Create Storm Images. The effort to centralize the graphics production actually began about 5 years ago in 2019. So we've known that we were moving towards the centralized production of graphics for quite a while. Of course, at that time, we didn't know exactly what it would look like. It was just the concept that we needed to move to centralized production as opposed to having it done at all of the offices individually. So here in Central Region, we've been using some modified PWPF tools to incorporate social science findings, things that we learned from the probabilistic messaging testbed and the working group, and the work that they've done with social scientists over the past 4 or 5 years or so. And so we've kind of modified the baseline PWPF stuff to do things that we think improve the graphics production and the content and how understandable the output is for our partners and the public. So we kind of modified that. Well, now we're going to be moving to a more standardized production suite with the PPP, which is going to go live in early November is the plan. And it's going to change how our PWF P8 pages or our winter pages are populated. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So here's what the prototype looks like. This is up in from the Burlington office where their ITO, I believe, is doing the work to update the page layout and that sort of thing. But one of the things that we wanted to make sure you're aware, one of the things we went to several years ago here in Central Region was to show the 25th to 75th percentile range on our default expected snowfall graphic. That's still going to be the case. You can see there I highlighted a little red rectangle to show that the range is going to be the default option on our pages. And as it has been in the past, you'll have the 10% and the 90th percentile as well available. And then there'll still be a lot of options as far as the probability of exceedance for different snowfall levels or amounts. So that will be available as well. So a lot of that kind of look and feel is going to be very similar to what we did in Central Region, but there are going to be some changes a little bit. And the key point here is that these graphics that are going to be on our winter pages now are coming from the PPP. They're not coming from the PM Create Storm Images that we run in GFE. And we'll talk more about that. We can still run that, of course, to create graphics for local use and that sort of thing. But the graphics on the winter pages, the PWPF pages, are going to come from the PPP. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So there's going to be a national tech order for the Probabilistic Precipitation Portal and the updated web pages expected in early November. They're shooting for last I heard was November 7th. And then we'll do a Central Region tech order to follow, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. As I mentioned, the local WFO winter web page graphics will point to the PPP. It will not be the ones when you run PM Create Storm Images. It'll be as we just showed, the best case, worst case, expected. Well, there'll be exceedance graphics, and that expected graphic will display the 20th, 5th to 75th percentile. So one key point that we want you to be aware of is that you can still run PM Create Storm Images locally to produce graphics for IDSS and social media, etc. The requirement, if you remember last year, we had the requirement to run PM Create Storm Images before 10 UTC and 22 UTC. That's going to be eliminated once the PPP tech order is installed. But the key point for now is proceed as we did last year, running the create storm images before 10 and 22Z until that national tech order is installed. Once the national tech order is installed, that requirement goes away, but you can always run that script or that procedure to get the graphics that you want so that you can put them in your DSS packets and put them on social media, etc. And so we'll get sending out more information here in the next couple weeks. So a few key points regarding the updated winter pages. There are some things that are going to change for us that we're going to lose the ability to do, unfortunately. The default display will be a 66 or 72-hour snowfall graphic, depending on what time of day you're running it. There will be 24-hour totals available in 6-hour intervals, such as you can do 0Z to 0Z tomorrow, you can do 6Z to 6Z 2 days from now, etc. You can do little 24-hour chunks. However, there's no ability to create custom storm durations in the PPP for our winter pages at this time. You can do that using your create storm images procedure to create those graphics locally. Say you wanted a storm duration of 36 hours, you can do that in your GFE, but it's not going to show up on the winter page. So here an example on the right is like one we did last year, with one from back a few years ago, but it was basically a 30-hour storm duration selected. We can't do that anymore. It's either going to be 66 to 72 or 24-hour chunks in there, which is problematic, because that means sometimes if you're looking at a 72-hour snowfall graphic, there might be 2 storms in that window, of course. But you can always run your create storm images locally to get the storm duration that you would like. So one thing that I also wanted to note is that there's some issues that have been noted with the output in the Rockies, especially obviously in the high terrain. So we're going to be documenting that this winter and discussing that. There's actually a couple meetings coming up to kind of discuss this issue. So we're aware of that, and for those offices, using the create storm images for your local partner support is going to be critical. Other key points regarding the updated pages: the PPP is going to use the same statistical method as previous years. IE is going to use your grids, the NDFD grids, as the mode of the distribution, and then it's going to create a binormal distribution based on your official grids. There was talk about switching to a different way of calculating that, but that's been postponed for this year. So it'll be kind of business as usual as far as the statistical method for creating the distribution. So as Allison mentioned, and I'll go over that slide that she talked about again here on the next one, it's going to take about an hour. 45 minutes is kind of if you get it done at, say you send your grids in around 40 after the hour, they should be posted on the winter page by 25 after the next hour. And as I mentioned before, the locally generated graphics no longer populate the WFO winter pages once we install the national tech order. So Allison showed this slide, but I want to talk about it again a little bit more, and just to make sure that it's clear how this works. So she talked about how if you submit your grids to NDFB by 40 minutes past the top of the hour, those PPP graphics will be ready 25 minutes past the next hour. However, think about it: if you don't get your grid, you don't publish your grids until 50 minutes past the hour, that means they're not going to show up on that PPP page for about an hour and a half. So that becomes really important if you want to get the PPP page updated as quickly as possible. You need to get the grids published before 40 minutes past the top of the hour. Otherwise, it's going to take a while. And of course, you can always run graphics locally to serve your partners. So what's ahead? When the national tech order is issued, do not install immediately. We have a 30-day window to install that tech order. And we're going to have 6 WFOs, Bismarck, Des Moines, Grand Forks, Indianapolis, St. Louis, and Milwaukee, test out that tech order to see if any fixes need to be made for central region sites. And I want to thank Chris Stumpf and Jerry Wiedenfeld for the work that they've been doing kind of on the back end, looking at the impacts and anticipating the kind of things that we might have to fix in central region once it's installed. After they test and identify any issues, if there are any, we will notify the offices and do a regional tech order when it is okay to install the updated PPP stuff. Now, version 2 is expected later this winter, And that will include some additional features requested by Central Region. I would like to acknowledge the Probabilistic Messaging Working Group and the Northern Plains Subregional Sioux Community. They provided a really nice list of concerns and things that they would like to see added to the page or updates to the PP that they think would be really beneficial based on the work we've done in Central Region here over the last 5 years. And one of those is going to be in version 2 later this winter, and that's going to be 48-hour storm totals. So at that point, we'll have 24, 48, and 72-hour options, or 66 to 72-hour options. So it's not exactly like you can create a custom storm duration, but it does give you the ability to have it more flexibility as far as the durations that you can point people to look at. One thing I also want to say is that the WPC and the PPP group have been very responsive to requests for modifications and improvements. We have had a couple of calls with them, and they really want to incorporate good social science into their work. As I mentioned, the Problem Messaging Group and the Northern Plains Sioux community suggested some things, and those have been taken to heart. And some of them are in version 1, some of them are going to be in version 2, and we'll continue to work with them on improvements. Like the third bullet there, to gather information from the complex terrain offices and work with them to improve the performance out there. And we'll continue to work with WPC to add pertinent social science findings from our problem messaging survey from a couple of years ago into the output. And they've been great to work with and really want to make this work for all of us in the field. The last thing I'll mention is the PPP will include PQPF info, which will soon be available on WFO web pages. We've been working toward that, I should say, for quite a few years now. So that's going to be exciting to finally get the PQPF available on our pages as well. So that's all I have. I just wanted to kind of give everyone a quick update. You'll hear more from us at the region as this rolls out, but I wanted to just kind of provide an overview for you all so that everybody kind of knows what to expect. The contact info for myself, Derek, Steph, and Mike are there. And if you have feedback on the PPP output, you can send it to the CR Problem Messaging team, where they can gather that input and then work with Derek and Steph to get it in front of the PPP and WPC folks. So that's all I had, Allie. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Randy. We have about 5 minutes for questions. So if anyone has questions, please enter them in the chat or feel free to raise your hand. We have one from Lance out in Riverton. He said, currently our winter pages default to the WSW Red Next tab that only shows when active highlights are issued. On the new PPP base pages, could we please have the probabilistic snow tab first, regardless of whether highlights are out? You know, it's most of their partners don't navigate to the prob snow page in order to read a big WSW text product. They want to see the range of possibilities.
Great, thanks for that, Lance. I'm not 100% certain on that. I don't know if Derek or Mike, if you would know what our options are. It's certainly something that we can take to the group, the PPP folks, and see if we can get that arranged, or if it's something we can modify at our end. So we'll take that request down, Lance, and then we'll do some little homework on it. I'm not super down on all the technical details, so I have to follow that one up. Oh, go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, so the way the winter pages are right now, that's standard across the board. So we can't make that change at the moment, from my understanding, but we are talking about reworking the winter pages for next year. So that's something we can definitely take note of and take back for the next winter.
Yeah, thanks, Steph. And that's a really good request, Lance. So let's make sure we capture that.
Great, thanks, Steph. Peter Rogers asks, do you know if the state level tabs on the winter pages will be going away or also populated by the PPP?
That I do not know. I can look at the prototype here real quick. I know that Derek or Steph, do you guys know the answer to that from sitting in on the winter SPT calls?
So I believe state images will be capable. I'm not 100% 100% sure if it's to the PPP or not. I know that that's something that we are going to work through the test sites to see which direction it goes. We are going to work with Burlington, the coding developer, to try to get things moving a little quicker, as they want to start testing things out sooner than before the national tech order comes out.
Thanks, Steph. Mike.
Yeah, to follow up on that, I do think the state level graphics are available. I don't know about linking those or how those will be linked. I know Allison demoed that a little bit on her section that's in the custom section, but I'm not sure about linking those to the web page, exactly how that'll work. So these are the sort of things we're going to test and have to provide feedback. So thanks for the question. Yeah, we'll get that addressed as this rolls out.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah,
Really appreciate that
Sure.
appreciate that there's some test offices willing to go through this first before the rest of the region.
Yeah, that's one of the things I guess I would say is that there's been a lot of, I wouldn't say not necessarily uncertainty, but it's not completely clear what that final page is going to look like because it's been under development still here into the fall. And there's been requests, and like we've been working with the PPP folks to try to get things added and that sort of thing. Like Mike said, the state level graphics will definitely be available on the PPP site, but whether they're getting linked to your local site at this time we're not sure at this point. But that's the stuff we'll find out when we test at the 6 offices here in early November.
Jenny noted also that the good news is that you couldn't make the state graphics before based on ISC grids and GFE, but now you can make them more easily on the PPP. So that is one benefit. All right, I haven't seen any other questions come in, so thank you again, Randy. And I'll turn it over to Jenny now.
Thanks, Allie. Thanks, everyone.